The Joel Fernandez Show is a talk show channeled spontaneously from source to edify and help raise the vibrations of truthers, starseeds, Christic alchemists, and others who have seen through this illusionary matrix into messianic consciousness by discussing hidden knowledge, higher dimensions, and manifesting so that we can shine our light for everyone to see and co-create the earth that we know we actually deserve to live in. Don't! I gotta go! I'm working on the show!
Here we go!
Welcome back to Joel's Bowl. This is the Joel Fernandez Show, isn't it? Episode 37, and I'm just making some soup and enjoying a good old-fashioned summer smoothie. Let's cut some turmeric, shall we? Turmeric. Growing up, we always called it turmeric, but apparently there's another R in there. I think that's a good case of the Mandela effect, but what do you guys think? Have you always called it turmeric? But yeah, if you like to check out some vegan recipes full of life and power, you can check that out at my YouTube channel right there. Today I'm just preparing a simple soup actually. Just some barley and asparagus with some chopped spinach. I'm using the frozen spinach because honestly, I use a whole bunch of spinach, but if you're using it in soup, you can't keep it fresh all the time unless you go to the store every third day. So what I do, I flash boil the spinach and then I group them up into little chunks and freeze them, and then just whenever I want, I got a baggie of frozen spinach balls. And I actually blanched 3 whole cartons this morning, and I'm going to be bagging them up in a bit while the soup is cooking. But before I get to bagging those up, I also bought some strawberries at the store, so I'm going to be removing the stems from those and bagging those up as well, like I did in a previous episode, and then I'm going to get to bagging the spinach. Summer's here to stay, at least for another couple days. The thing is, here in Calgary, it usually snows early September. I remember when I was younger, my birthday's actually September 16th. And that's actually a very special time period with the syncretic calendar because the week that begins September 16th actually ushers in the autumnal equinox. And not only that, that's when the sun enters the constellation of Virgo. Not the zodiacal sign, but the actual stars in the sky, because this is literally a clock that we're following, and that is the longest month of the year with 52 days for that constellation. So I'm proud to have my birthday on that very day, and yeah, in tropical zodiac, I'm also Virgo, but honestly, since I learned to manifest beyond those limitations, none of that even matters anymore. Because now I'm speaking with the voice and the message of the lion and the force of the ram. But now that the soup's getting ready, I'm just going to chop up some of these strawberries. Good stuff. Let's get another ripe one here. Summertime, I can just live off of that fruit. Anyway, I gotta stop munching on these and start cutting because otherwise I'm just gonna finish them all. So let's begin. This time I'm actually not gonna cut them. I'm just gonna remove the stems and throw them in bags. Because yeah, like I said, these are gonna end up in the smoothies. Actually, for the big ones, I might cut them in half. But honestly, it doesn't really matter because they're just going to end up in my smoothies anyway. You can't really de-thaw strawberries and still have the same texture because they just turn into piles of mush, really. The best part of the strawberry is the tip, though, because the tip is nice and deep red. Then towards the stem, sometimes it's still kind of raw. Doesn't matter because I'm freezing them all. And they're all gonna end up in my belly.
Come here, I'm gonna eat you! I'm bigger than you, I'm higher in the food chain! Get in my belly!
But you know what? There's been a lot of development here locally, and even the kind of groups that I'm into, that I'm hanging out with, like a lot of stuff has just been coming to the surface, especially with the way the government's been treating people. That one was just too good to freeze. And I find that because I'm so busy, I actually eat more by having smoothies rather than actually trying to cook food. I wonder what's going to happen in the winter. Like, already mango season is over, and for me that kind of sucks, because honestly, if there are mangoes, man, I can eat like half a dozen, even a dozen a day. I just love mangoes. But there have been quite a few developments. Like, I could talk about food all day, but honestly, there's been a few developments in the groups that I kind of associate with and get pretty vocal about, you know, what's going on in the government and world and all that stuff these days. And I realize that some of these groups, like, they are taking a bit more religious stance on things. And because of that, they're in tune with, like, what's going on in some of these organizations. And, like, I know there's corruption in the churches. I know that a lot of these institutions have been bought out and paid for by the Vatican. But honestly, like, the government these days, they're not against, like, fringe groups like what I'm talking about. They're just against normal churches. And that begs the question, like, why are they against normal churches if they're so messed up? Like, what do they have that the government's actually afraid of to lock their doors? And speaking of locked doors, there was a pastor in Ontario that was forced to lock their doors. And, like, they're way more traditional than you'd expect. And the police literally filed into the church during service and served him the order. And that just begs the question, like, what's going on here? Like, do the churches really have something that the institution of government is afraid of? And if so, what is that? Because, like, when you think of churches, like, what do you think of? You know, outside of the corruption, at least. When you think of, like, the idea of what church is supposed to represent, what comes to mind? Like, purity, holiness, godliness, like, fellowship, love, you know? And then you have, like, outreach and deliverance and, like, feeding the poor. Like, those are the churches that are really involved. But technically, that's what the church is supposed to be doing. But what is it about this that's such a threat? Like, in my last show, like, why was Pastor Archer actually locked up with 7 criminal charges just for reading the Bible to some people in a park? He wasn't teaching, he wasn't doing anything. He was just reading the Bible. And there were 7 criminal charges filed against him for that? Makes you wonder.
I want you to see something, what happened to our nation, what happened to our Christendom today. Come, I'll show you. This is how Canadian Christians and Canadian churches look like. Everything is upside down. It's not anymore about the truth. It's not anymore about the Bible and biblical stance. It's not about what God wants. It's all about what people want. Everything is upside down. The Church of Jesus Christ has become a mockery of the gospel. The Church of Jesus Christ right now, the so-called Christians, and I'm not talking only about United Church garbage and lies from the pit of hell. I'm not talking about Catholicism. I'm talking about the whole Christianity right now. It's almost impossible right now to find a good pastor that will preach the whole gospel. It's almost impossible to find a Christian that will stand for the biblical views. Just like this building, just like this art shows you here, the church is upside down.
But yeah, back to the story about this church in Elmer, Ontario. The police literally filed in and then served him. He knew why they were there, but he wasn't going to compromise his beliefs for that. So while they were standing in the sanctuary ready to serve him the order, he just started preaching Daniel 3, you know, the 3 Hebrew boys that refused to bow to the golden image of King Nebuchadnezzar. And guess what they were threatened with? They were threatened with the death penalty. And not just any death penalty, but to be made a public spectacle of by being thrown alive with all their clothes on into the fiery furnace or the Babylonian brick kiln. And the Babylonian bricks, they were heated so hot that the sand literally glossified and turned to like glass. And they would color this stuff blue and really neat colors. But they heated this oven 7 times hotter than normal. And it was so hot that when Nebuchadnezzar got his best guards to rally them up and throw them into the furnace, the heat actually killed the guards. But because they stood up, and they stood in faith, mind you, and it was that faith that actually saved them, because when they were in the furnace, Nebuchadnezzar got up and he'd say, look, I threw 3 people in there, but there's a 4th one, and he's glowing, shining like the Son of God. So he called them out, and guess what? They didn't even smell like smoke. Not a hair on their head was singed. This is what happens when you remain faithful to your inner convictions, because that legislation trumps any of man's legislation.
Just read a scripture for you, 2 verses out of Daniel chapter 3, verse 18. Verse 17. If it be so, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of thine hand. But if not, be it known unto thee, O King, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. Amen? That's a prayer. Amen. Father, we thank you this afternoon that you are our God. Thank you, Lord, that with real love in our hearts, we look at these officers, Father, and we pray for their souls. Lord, surely they feel your presence, and Lord, they know what is right and what is wrong. Now, Lord, help them, we pray, as they go home tonight. Help them to realize and never forget, and Lord, save their souls, so that we can all go to heaven. And Lord, please forgive them, for they know not what they're doing. That's as we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Please go ahead, officer.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is David Miller.
Here's the mic.
I'm a court enforcement officer, commonly known as a sheriff. I have a valid court order here today requiring the sheriff, that's me, and the assistance of the police to vacate everyone from the building, and we will be locking the building. I'd ask for your respectful assistance in this, and everyone leave, please, in an orderly fashion.
And so that day that the police came in and they rounded the whole congregation out and they got the locksmith there and locked the doors, guess what? Their membership count doubled. And they've since been holding meetings outdoors. Just last week, he came and visited the cave. And man, this guy was roaring like a lion. Just on par there with Pastor Arthur. Because that's the energy that allows you, when Christ roars at the Lion of Judah within you, that's the power that allows you to actually stand up to these tyrants and actually come out unsinged. And while the police were waiting there, while he was preaching, guess what? He was praying for these people right in front of their faces, and they could feel that energy. Man, I could feel the energy right through the camera. Woo! And that's the power of the kingdom of heaven. To literally stand up in Nero's face and say, should I listen to you or should I listen to God? Really? Is that the choice you're giving me? When God becomes real in you, there's no question. And that's why all these other people arguing doctrines and whatnot about the written letter, about histories of so-and-so and what the Catholic Church did, and because the Catholic Church did this, oh, you got to throw out the book as well. Really, the Catholics don't teach their congregation the book. It was actually discouraged among Catholics to read the Bible. Why do you think they burned the first translators of the Bible at the stake? It's because they were scared that people would actually know what the book was talking about. And then they realized, hey, you know what? We can still control this from the pulpits and this and that. And then you have your certified translations, which is a whole other issue of getting into. But I read the book in the original language, and that's one of the main reasons why I see things a bit differently than most churchgoers. But a lot of people that argue against the ideas of the scriptures, they haven't read the whole thing. They're picking and choosing whatever books they like, and they're saying, oh, you know what, you can't take that book at face value, but this book over here is, where it's at. If you're going to realize the truth about an issue, you got to take the whole thing. And that's what I learned, because originally, I was raised in a church, but I had my own journey, and I, saw the hypocrisy. I saw all these things going on in the church, and I was like, man, I don't want nothing to do with that. And guess what? I didn't even care to read the scriptures, because I was like, hey, there's so many contradictions, why is God like this here and God's like that there? It sounds like he's schizophrenic. All the usual arguments from textual criticism. And honestly, I'd still be in that same boat, except that I had my near-death experience. And when that happened, I saw a source. I saw him, and it was a radiant fire. And then I realized, what these prophets in the Hebrew scriptures were actually talking about, being taken up in spirit and seeing, angels and creatures and all this stuff. It's not phony. It's not exaggerated. And trust me, it's not psychedelic either, because I did that too. Psychedelics don't come near the power of what the living word can actually reveal to you by itself. It's not a book. It's a living being that's taken the form of a physical book.
It's the word for all time, the word for all the world, the story forever alive. Superbook.
Sounds wild? Well, you probably can't get much more psychedelic than that. And the thing is, sure, all that stuff is legit. It's nobody would care if it didn't work. But obviously it does work. It does open doors of perception into spiritual, causal realms, higher dimensions, all of that. But it doesn't reveal it in fullness. And there are a lot of etheric beings that can hijack that and make you think something is true that's not true until you see them for who they really are. You're like, oh my goodness, this is who I was calling my spirit guide? And then you literally have a panic attack, but you're just so high you can't do anything about it. Life's not a game you just trifle with. And it's the same thing with astrology. The only reason why people get caught up into the predictive astrology is because, it's based in truth. It is a clock in the sky. It literally is the fractal reality made manifest in a shadow of the causal blueprint. But when predictive astrology goes into horoscopes, and then you're using that to predict what your choices are going to be for the day and, what you can expect to happen, that's literally taking you out of tune with the power that source is trying to radiate through you, because you are the breath of Elohim, and you got to start acting like that. Literally, Elohim created the worlds through the spoken word. And how do you speak the word? Through your breath. And that's why I talk about the living word, because like I said, we can get caught up in the physical, but that's just one level of the book sealed with 7 seals till the end of days. That's why I love the stories, the visions, and the prophecies of Daniel. That's why I love the book of the Apocalypse, because it's revealing things to us from a deeper level. And when you read it with your mind and you're reading it with logic, man, it's not going to make sense, and it's going to take you down a completely weird rabbit hole, or literally a Taurus hole, like I always say, because it's never ending. It's just a big donut you're trapped inside of. But when you read it with your heart, it's like, oh, look at that. And then it opens up a whole bunch of new stuff. And like I said, the book is sealed till the end of days, when knowledge increases in the world and everybody's running here and there, and the wicked are doing wickedly and they can't discern, but those discerning can discern. It's very interesting when you read the passage in Hebrew, because it's a pun on all these words. And through the trying of times, we're actually purified and our clothes are made white. and all of that. So that's in the book of Daniel, that's in the book of Revelation. And I love some of the insight that guys like David Koresh had, because when, I don't agree with everything the guy did, particularly with some of his views in Seventh-day Adventism and stuff, but like when he's studying the Bible, he just has these insights and he's bringing them to the surface, and you're like, hey, I never thought of it that way. And there's a reason why the ATF came after him and ended up wiping out that whole commune and literally destroying all of their stuff. It's really difficult to find any of his notes or sermons or, really anything these days, because they took it all. FBI, ATF, they destroyed it all. So let's have a moment of silence for all those martyrs. But I think the soup is just about ready, so I'm going to cut the scene here because I've already bagged my strawberries and my spinach, and we're gonna have a chat around a hot bowl of, it's not really soup, it's just like stewed asparagus with barley. It's pretty awesome. Even just the stock from that is pretty tasty. So yeah, cut right here. All right, let's let the hair down. And we are ready to eat. But before I begin, I'd like to have some hot tea or just like hot stock water. I don't know. Like, I always cook my grains with extra water, so whatever's left over, I boil with some cumin and just enjoy. This is with the barley and asparagus stock. I love barley and asparagus stock. It's one of my favorites outside of chickpea stock. But for some reason, chickpea and cumin tea smells like Chinese restaurant. I don't know. Not Chinese food, but Chinese restaurant. When you walk in the room and you get that smell. I used to love eating at Chinese restaurants. And actually, like, as a vegan, you can still eat at Chinese restaurants. You just got to know what to order. Or when you're ordering, just let the server know, like, hey, I want some white rice and steamed veg. But yeah, man, we went to this Chinese restaurant, really great place here in Calgary, like a central landmark. This is Central Grand Restaurant. And I was like, well, maybe the only thing I can eat is like steamed rice. Maybe if we get steamed vegetables without, any stock or MSG, like I could probably eat that too. But then my mom ordered a vegetarian hot pot of like fried eggplant, which normally I don't like eggplant, man. It's mushy and it doesn't taste like anything. And like, I feel like comparing it to wet socks, but honestly, I don't know what wet socks taste like. But when I had this dish, man, it was not like any other time I had eggplant before. And I was amazed. Like, my mom's vegan too, so she pretty much eats whatever I eat. So she was like, yeah, this is still good for you. I'm like, yeah, let me try a bit. I tried it, man. That was the best eggplant dish I've ever had in my life. Like, if I knew how to cook eggplant like that, I'd actually buy eggplant and be making it. But I don't know how to do that, and trial and error, man, I'm not up for the error part of that. Trial and success. Now, if that's the way, maybe I should just visualize that. We'll see. Maybe in the future, you'll find a eggplant recipe on Joel's Bowl. Speaking of Joel's Bowl, who stole my bowl? Ah, here it is. So I am gonna serve myself with some of this amazing asparagus and barley mix. It's not soup though, it just turned into like a porridge kind of mush. Barley gets that way because it's like really thick and then it becomes like pottage. But that's another thing. The reason why I pressure cook all my food is because of my teeth, guys. Don't do what I did. And if you are fruitarian, make sure you're getting ripe fruit and don't be eating raw fruit. You really do have no choice but to eat some acidic fruit or like raw picked oranges. At least rinse your mouth out with water afterwards. Don't be thinking that just the diet's gonna raise your vibration, because literally the pain and the cursing that you're gonna be doing as a result of the pain is literally gonna bring you down like 4 or 5 steps just for a sacrifice of like 1 or 2 steps. Literally, you can get all of that by just tuning into Source in your own heart space. Source will line things up for you. And another thing, like I said, is that word is alive. So when the word comes alive in you, it will literally change you from the inside out. And I'm not talking about the institutionalized religion here. I'm just talking about you and Source. That's what it's all about, because there are people arguing all sorts of things. And it's puzzling, really, because when I think about it, it's like, why is the government so adamant about preventing church services? Of all things, they're like coming down hard on church services. And it really makes me wonder, like, if the syncretists really had what the churches were afraid of, like, why aren't they shutting down syncretist channels? It's because they're owned by Freemasons and they're peddling Freemasonic interpretations of the scriptures. And of course, the Freemasons, the Knights Templar, they were the original threat to the Catholic Church. That's why they were rounded up in 1307 and burned at the stake on the Friday the 13th. But you know, by now, they've already infiltrated the Catholic Church and they basically run the whole thing. They run Sunni Islam. They run all institutionalized religions around the world. And Christendom is also completely bought out by them. And that's why, like, while it was actually at one time heresy to translate and read the sacred scriptures, now they just have their own versions out there. They have their own puppets in the pulpits. That's why I'm saying, if Source leads you to one of these groups, like he led me to the Cave of Adullam with Pastor Arthur, he won't lead you to these evangelical mainstream denominations. So once you get right with Source in you, and you allow that word to actually quicken and teach you things from the inside out, not with your ego, not with your mind, not with your logic. Just allow your heart to lead you. And once you just set that intention, just allow what needs to unfold. Source will literally bring you across everything you need in order to grow in that. And you'll realize things on a much deeper level. You see, I'm a truth seeker too. I want to get to the bottom of this. I'm puzzled too. Like, why are some churches teaching some things and why are some groups teaching another thing, and why does syncretism actually make sense here, and in this sense it totally contradicts itself? If it's syncretic, it shouldn't contradict itself, you know? Maybe I should bring this up with Santos, because honestly, like I said in a previous episode, I consider him my philosophical godfather, my Calabrian godfather. Calabrezza! He showed me all these things, how the Vatican owned your soul with the Triple Crown and etymology and legalese, you know, and how the stars are literally a symbol of the human body, and literally the blueprint of all things is fractalized in all these different aspects of physical creation. You know, man is a measure of the universe, as above, so below. All these things from the Hermetica, like, that's all well and good, but why isn't the government cracking down on that as much as they are on, like, these traditional churches? What do the traditional churches have that, you know, maybe we don't have? Questions. We begin by having some garlic. Garlic! It burns with the power of 1,000 suns. I never thought I'd be eating raw garlic. It was one of those things I stayed away from all the time. Just because I'm like, hey, is there a reason why Hare Krishnas don't eat garlic? And then I realized it's because garlic actually fights evil spirits. Now, there's something to think about. But I begin. Good stuff. Yeah, literally, I went to the store today. I went to pick up some organic garlic because I was finished, like, I bought 7 bags last time and they're all done. So I went in there to buy more garlic and they were sold out of organic garlic. So I had to get the regular stuff. I know, sucks. And they didn't have any lettuce at Costco. I wanted to make a salad today too. But oh well. We're good, and we're filming this, so it's all good. It's all good. It's good. I spent a lot of time chewing that barley because I didn't pre-soak it. I never pre-soak my stuff unless it's like kidney beans. Then I like flash boil them and soak them for like 4 to 6 hours if I can. Normally I don't make kidney beans. Today I should have soaked my barley because I knew I was gonna pick up asparagus. It's just barley takes so long to cook, and if you cook it on the stovetop, it like really takes like 3.5 hours on simmer just to get it that soft consistency. Otherwise it's still grainy and you still gotta chew it like. And if you've seen my teeth, you know that that's something I don't really enjoy. But I'll save you the graphic images of my teeth. I shared that in the last video and I'm like, man, maybe that's not such a good idea. But you know what? Just don't make the same mistakes I did. Brush your teeth. And you know, I used to think like, oh, the dental association, it's just an association and they're out to make money because once they put braces in your mouth, they know you're going to get cavities and then you got to get your fillings and then you got to get teeth replaced and blah, 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 blah. Same thing with the TMJ. Like I had braces put in, I had TMJ work done, and literally like my oral hygiene went downhill right after that. But you know what? It's good advice to floss. It's good advice to brush your teeth. It's good advice to keep your mouth clean because, hey, you got to be fresh, right? And even me, like eating garlic now, I make sure my mouth is fresh because garlic makes your food taste great, but you still sleep alone. Nothing personal here, guys. Nothing personal. But you know what? We've got a high vibe mindset, the mind of Christ, and we're literally manifesting with faith. And Source has got this all planned out, right? All things in its due time. We're not trying to rush things because in the meantime, there are things I gotta do this way. There are things I gotta learn about the single life first before Source will allow me to commit to that sort of stuff. It's not like I haven't tried, but every time I think something's gonna line up, Source is like, nope, not right now. And then I realize there's always something more that Source wants to grow me in and personal development that's leading me down that path. But it's really weird how I act around children because like they can be jumping off my shoulders, like hanging on to my legs and I'm trying to walk. And the other day I was in the church and like I'm trying to play the keyboard and this other boy is just like banging on the keyboard. He's the same guy that raced me up that ledge when I was on vacation. He's just a really hyper guy. But you know, I'm just so calm about it. I'm just like, oh, so what do you want to play now? And it's like, Source is showing me like I have a way with children, but you know what? Not time for me to have children of my own yet. And you know what? There were plenty of instances when I was like, I want this stuff to line up before when I was working my last job. And then the lockdown hit and I'm like, you know what? Maybe it's good that things didn't line up back then. And then I look at those people that I wanted to hook up with and it's like, you know what? They would have completely taken me down the wrong road through this. So I'm really grateful for that, and I'm grateful for whatever Source is preparing me for, because I know it's going to be beyond amazing. But you know, even at my last job, like, there were some manifestations that I couldn't even have asked for, and I just visualized certain things, and then poof, there she is in my lap. I'm like, hey, you having a good time at the work Christmas party? So you know, these things can happen, but when Source has a destiny for you and you really tap in, that destiny takes preeminence. And yeah, you can manifest little things along the way, but that destiny is way greater than anything you can imagine, even now in the present moment. Even trying to visualize your best life yet. Trying to manifest that, trying to journal that. You can put a vision board, like don't let that stop you, but all in due time. So you just be faithful with what you have right now. You know, don't compare yourself to other people. Don't go looking and say, you know what? That's what I want to be like. Like they really have something, I can do that. Don't do none of that. Or any of that. Don't catch me on my English grammar, guys. Just be true to who you are. And know that the goal, the prize is ahead of you, not behind you. So don't look back. Don't look back. Oh, what's this? Message on the phone. Ooh. Marriage in the family. What? Samantha? That's my cousin. Oh. No. Not that Samantha. Okay, cool. I was like, my cousin's getting married tomorrow? Why didn't she tell me? Oh, well. But that's cool. And hey, that's confirmation too, right? Because what were we just talking about? Source has a way of confirming things. And like I know, if I just trust Source and allow Source to line up the dots, like, things work out way better than you ever anticipated. And if you're complaining and you're like, oh, I wish it worked this time, and why didn't this person text me back, and oh, you're just cutting your own legs out from under you. So it's better to walk in faith and know that Source has your back, and literally Source can surprise you, impress you, and really make things work out, like I said, beyond your wildest expectations. That's what happened with this show. I never planned this show. I never planned my channel, and I never planned my ministry. I never planned linking up with people like I thought. And I never thought that the ancient scriptures would actually bring so much meaning into my life. And I would have such a profound experience out of body, literally at the feet of the throne of the Most High. The Most High is not the North Star. Literally bringing me into realization and understanding of things beyond this physical world, beyond this physical dimension. Like, for that itself, like, I'm just so grateful to be alive. Like, I'm devoting my life to this kind of work, because literally I should be dead. I should be dead based on what I went through that day. So literally, like, I'm dead. It's just Christ living out through me now. And that's why I'm unstoppable. That's why it's all about the message. That's why it's all about changing lives. And that's why I'm linking up with people that, you know, I didn't even know before, but Source lined me up with so-and-so and such group. And now we're like on the street, you know, helping homeless people and literally turning their lives around. Because honestly, they're in a way worse state than I ever was. And that's what it is all about. Like, when you're in a better space, help those people that aren't in the space that, you know, they can't even imagine what life is like, you know, to have a home, to have a family, to have money, to have food. Like, you know, you get up early and you serve breakfast at some of these places, and, you know, at first it was weird because, like, I would wonder, like, why are all the prostitutes coming and sitting at my table, right? It's like, do they want me to do something and then we can pay for it later? Like, it was really uncomfortable. But then I realized, like, you know, they just want to be in that space where there's peace and love emanating. And they didn't even know it was me. They just kind of fell into place, I guess. And when I think about it, like, you know, I can't even imagine what they might have been through the night before. Like, I don't even want to let my mind go there and entertain those kind of scenarios. But really, this stuff is going on, and these people, they need help more than anything else. Nobody chooses that kind of life out of desire, maybe out of necessity. It's sad, man. It's sad. But we are the light of the world. We are the salt of the earth.
Have you ever wondered what it would be like if there was no sun? Or what if there was no moon? What if there was no light left in the world at all? No one could see. Everyone would be lost. Nobody could find their way.
Help, I can't see.
I'm afraid of the dark.
Who turned out the light?
I'm lost.
God is light. If you know him, then let his light that is inside you shine. You may wonder what difference one little light can make. But remember, even the tiniest little light is stronger than all the darkness. So, shine. Because as long as there is light left shining, people will see it and find their way back to God.
What good is a light if it's hidden under a bushel? We gotta be the city on the hill that you can't help but see. And when you shine before men, the Christ can shine for you. That's another aspect of sowing and reaping, you know. What you do to others will be done back to you. Same measure you meet withal shall be measured to you again. And literally, like, if anybody's wronged you, you know, don't hold on to those grudges, because those are seeds, and, you know, the heart is the soil it's planted in, and that's going to grow up to your own harvest. So forgive, and that's number one. In fact, one of my first downloads ever, this was like back in 2012, when I was first waking up and realizing, you know, there's more to life than just work and institutionalized religion back then, in which I was, you know, just beginning to wake up to. I'd seen Santos's video on like how the Vatican owns your soul, and I'm like, you know what, this isn't the future that I came here to live in. But one of the first downloads that came to me when I tapped in and Source started to speak to me and guide me from my heart space was to forgive, and you can literally solve the universe like a Rubik's Cube. And when all the pieces are in place and all the corruption is exposed and out of the way, you literally manifest the reason why this universe was created. And that's so that we can all, as pieces of the puzzle, live out our best lives, yet in tandem with the universe as a holistically functioning macroorganism. Why wouldn't it be anything else than that? But we have to make the choice to start solving that Rubik's Cube of the universe and forgive. And that will lead you to the next step and down your own path, and pretty soon you'll be sliding away.
Peggle.
I love Mario. And you know, growing up, like a lot of those video games like really gave me inspiration to what I wanted to achieve in life. But as I grew older and I started to try and manifest these things, I realized like first, Source has to make your character right, in the right place, and actually be able to handle those scenarios. Because if you can't handle them, like even if that comes right to your face and like you're holding on to whatever it is you wanted, it's just going to slip away. It's going to be taken away from you sometimes in moments. It's like people who win the lottery, right? Why do they end up broke or worse off than they were before they won the lottery? It's because their mindset wasn't right to handle the lottery. They ended up manifesting the winning part of it, but they didn't manifest the actual investment part of it. You know, it's like the story of the talents. You know, one guy got 5 talents and he invested it. Another guy got 2 talents and he did business with it. But the other guy that got 1 talent, the master was like, well, maybe I'll just give him 1 and see what he does. The guy goes and digs a hole and hides it so that nobody steals it. And when the master comes back, he's like, hey, here's your talent back. And he's like, you were supposed to make something out of it. This is what they were servants to do. They were servants to actually make the master money. So the other ones actually did it, but this guy was like, he was punished for, you know, his ineptitude. But that is not what Source is going to say to me, because Source, I decided this long ago, like way long ago. I said, like, what Source gives me to do, I'm going to do to the best of my ability. And when I get to the other side, Source is going to be like, well done, good and faithful servant. Enter into the joy of your Lord. And it's that you're entrusted with little so that he can see that you can be trusted with more. And it's not like, oh, we're just hassled in this life and we have duties and things to fulfill down here. Then when we get to the other side, it's just going to be sitting on a cloud strumming a lyre. No, we're going to have responsibilities like we couldn't even have imagined in this time-space reality. But those responsibilities and that growth and that learning that's going to go on behind the veil, on the other side of the veil, it's a whole other level. We're literally going to become kings and priests. And kings have a whole lot on their table. But when you're ready for it, when you're trained for it, you can actually handle it. Because honestly, the only thing that you can take with you out of this life is your personal development. You can't take money. You can't take even relationships. You can't really take with you. Sure, they might be there on the other side, but you're not even able to take a lot of those things with you. But you're not actually able to take it itself to the other side. But you do take your own character development. And when I had that realization, I was like, that's what I got to do. I got to get in tune with Source and really make sure that I have that heart connection and that I'm listening to what Source wants for me to decide, what Source wants for me. Let my actions and my decisions be based on that inner feeling, that conviction from Source. Because the Godhead knows, like, you're a manifestation of that creative power. So of course, even the minor details, God wants the best for you. So tap into Source and really acknowledge that Source has a broader perspective than your ego ever could. And that's the first step to actually walking in harmony, and just learn how to listen to your heart. Have a conversation with your heart, because it's a relationship. It's a relationship with the divine. But you first have to acknowledge the divine as master. Otherwise, your ego is still vying for that position. And in the meantime, Source's hands are figuratively tied, but the manifestations will prove it. But bottom line, guys, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of whatever the media is throwing at us. No matter what the story is, it's not even true. Like, one thing I've got to share is, like, it looks impossible. And, like, with the way the media is just going, it's like they're not slowing down. It's like full throttle ahead. But, they're telling us like Australia is like locked down and forced jabs and all this kind of stuff. Well, we called our family that's down there in Sydney, and we're like, what's going on? We're really concerned. Is everything okay? And she's like, it's fake news.
You are fake news.
She didn't even say like, oh, it's not as bad as they're making it seem. She just said straight up, it's fake news. And that's the same thing they're doing here. They're telling people in the East, like, Calgary's so bad, Alberta's cases are rising and the premier's doing nothing. I have family that works in the hospital, and like literally like 1 or 2 patients, and that's an outbreak. And like the whole hospital, only 2 patients are positive. And the other thing about it is that if people come in with whatever symptoms, the first thing they ask is like, have you got the shot or not? And if they say yes, like, they don't mark anything down. But whatever symptoms they have or whatever else, they just write that off as some other symptom or whatever cause of morbidity or whatever it is, because people are dying. But if they haven't got it, first thing they write down is I can't even say the word because of the algorithm. And that's how censorship works. But now you just want to know more, right? But really, the bottom line, we're not talking about the doom and gloom. We're talking about the bottom line is that don't be afraid. There's more power in the kingdom of light than there ever is in the kingdom of darkness. Because you flick on a light switch, it's not like the darkness retreats and hides in a corner. It literally just doesn't exist anymore. That's what we're dealing with. That's who we are. And though it looks like they surrounded us, it's like the story of Elisha and his servant Gehazi. When the king found out that Elisha was actually a seer, a prophet, and he was seeing into the unseen realm and actually disclosing the king's secrets of war and whatever else to Elisha's own king, we're talking about the king of Syria here, he went to hunt him down. And I might as well just read straight from the text here. So the king sent horses and chariots and a great host, and they came by night and compassed the city about. And when the servant of the man of God was risen early, that's Gehazi, Elisha's servant, behold, a host compassed the city, both with horses and chariots. And his servant said unto him, Alas, my master, how shall we do? And he answered, Fear not, for they that are with us are more than they that are with them. And Elisha prayed, and Yahweh, I pray thee, open his eyes that he may see. And Yahweh opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw. And behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire round about Elisha. And that's what we have at our disposal. That's the hosts of heaven, the armies of the living God. And lately, they've been caught on camera. In the book of Yehoshua, or Joshua in the English, he's claiming the land of Canaan for the Israelites. And Yahweh says to him, he says, I'll send my hornets ahead of you to clear the enemy from your path. And we stand in that same power, so we decreed the same thing. And guess what? There have been reports and people have taken photos of literal formations that look like these hornets in the sky. And not just the natural hornets, but like the fighter jet hornets. The supersonic jets that, they're usually on the aircraft carriers because they don't need such a long runway. And they're so maneuverable, and that's what we're dealing with, not just in the physical, but this is the causal realm. So these things show up in photos all the time, and people just dismiss it as, oh, that's lens flare. Oh, that's, some strange cloud formation. Oh, that's just a glitch in the frame capture. But really, these things show up, and they are at our aid because we dispatch them. It's that same Christic authority that we are exercising, and once we do that, they just show up. There's a group in Virginia that actually did this over the entire education system, and the very next day, the Students Association hired a lawyer and had a meeting where they just exposed all the things that the teachers were trying to push on their children. These things happen instantly because we break the chains in the causal realm. The physical realm has to comply.
My name is Carrie Bowler. You see my shirt, it says Mama, and I'm a mama bear, and I know there's a lot of mama bears here tonight, and no one's going to mess with our cubs. That's right. Just so you know. I'm a resident of Encinitas, born and raised San Diegan, and tonight I'm simply here to tell you to unmask our children. We're done begging. In fact, we're done asking for permission. That's right. We are going to be unmasking our children today. That's right. The parents are done. We're done asking you, public servants, for permission. We are done. You can all wear your masks. In fact, you can wear 2 masks and 3 masks. You can wear gloves. You can have plexiglass. You can do whatever you need to do to keep you safe. But we, the parents, believe we have a choice for our children. And I don't know who you think you are, that you think that you have more of a say than us, the parents, and our doctors. I don't know who any of you think you are. I really don't. That's right. It ends today. That's right. We are declaring our freedom tonight. We do not consent to the lies, fear-mongering, and abuse. You all know it's abuse. This is tyrannical leadership, poor leadership. None of you are willing to stand up for our children. This is why we are all here tonight, because we're fed up. We're done asking permission. And I want to let you know, Emily, you're up in 2022. Greg, you're up in 2022. Marla, you're up in 2022. And Jody, you're up in 2024. I know that myself, I would love to run for school board. Me too. And I know many, many mothers who will come in and replace all of you. So I am going to promise you tonight that I will campaign against you. I will fundraise against you, and I will make sure that none of you ever serve in a public space ever again.
But maybe I'll go further into depth in that subject in a future video. Maybe I'll make a reasoning session on that because there's a lot of scripture to back that up. Maybe I'll even do, like I've been saying, a special deep dive show. But right now I am full. I ate a lot. So I'm going to do the dishes. I'm going to cut the show here. And I'll check you guys in a future video. I love all of you guys because you're all truth seekers. Everybody that's stuck with this channel up until now, and even the newcomers, like, I know you're seeking truth. And I pray blessings over you every night because we're all in this high vibe tribe together. We're all doing our part to wake up and really embody that source energy in our own lives. And we intend to ripple it out. You know, we are pyromaniacs spreading the fire wherever we can. So I commend you for that, and my blessings to you. I really do love you guys from the bottom of my heart. Every single one of you. And even if you don't comment, even if you're just watching the videos, even if you don't even give it a thumbs up, anything like that, Source knows who you are. And Source has got your back. So I'll check you in a future video. Joel signing out once again. Agape, salaam, namaste, khotep.
Beef. What a relief. When will this poisonous product cease? This is another public service announcement. You can believe it or you can doubt it. Let us begin now with the cow. The way it gets to your plate and how.
Want to be too scared to go outside? The news is next.
Welcome to News with an Attitude. I'm Joe Knows All with news and views from your local communities and planet Earth. We distort, you can't retort. Tonight on News with an Attitude, everything in simple terms so you can understand. Foreigners are pouring in across the border, but don't worry, they're not infected. In other foreign news, we have war, pestilence, violence, and a lot of envy aimed at our way of life. Stay alert, they're after us.
You don't believe me.
Back at home, top singer Jacqueline Beaver threatens to stop singing. America celebrates. Movies, are they true? And the FDA warns shampoo is killing your unborn child. Plus, protests continue across the nation. Why those people are self-centered, raging, lunatic, Trump-supporting narcissists. Officials state that there are truly no reported casualties, which is unfortunate as it makes for incredibly boring news. The federal government is still refusing to listen to their demands as nationwide mandates are enforced once again. And everyone is blaming each other, the Constitution, blah, blah, bloopity, blah, blah. The Prime Minister's office says everything would be okay if it weren't for those super-spreading protesters, despite scientific proof demonstrating that masks don't work against virus. I mean, that hatred is good for you. Youth counselors are heading to the streets to educate the public on the philanthropy of subjecting yourself to experimental gene therapy in the ongoing inoculation program, even though it won't guarantee immunity against the raging Zoquit virus. Be sure to stay indoors and not leave your house, even for necessities, as the latest symptoms of the Epsilon variant include cold sweats, hot sweats, fever, diarrhea, hepatitis, AIDS, Tourette's syndrome, involuntary convulsions, speech impediments, loss of sight, hearing, inability for males to maintain an erection, hallucinations, and even being eaten alive from the inside by worms.
Who knows what waits for us in nature's no man's land?
A suspected U.S. agent was caught in Goblikistan selling weaponry to right-wing guerrillas in exchange for drugs that are now being sold in the streets of our cities. But we plan mostly to gloss over the implications and hope you enjoy the sporting activities scheduled for later tonight. Also, strange, inexplicable lights have been spotted over the desert. Local officials blame the water supply. I'm Joe Knows All, keeping you updated on all the government wants you to know. The world is ending, or at least we hope so. We need the ratings. Stay worried out there.